Okay, so you're welcome to turn off your cameras if you prefer. Um, and now, here comes the real test. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to jump right into the program. Since we it's the beginning. Okay. Um,
Does it have the gray on it?
do you see the annoying black bar across the?
Yes. Yeah, across this
Yes.
one side and the bottom. Yeah.
Anybody know how to get rid of that without losing everybody? Maybe I can. It doesn't want to. We'll move down a little bit. There, it went away. Woohoo! All right.
Not on mine, but okay.
Uh, uh, okay. Get on mine. Okay. Okay. Usual routine. We'll skip the talk around because had the issue. Let's just go. Here we go. I. These are the major events. I've highlighted in red the ones I think that could be most important. Tomorrow's the full moon, 2:27 p.m., which means it should be big, beautiful, and who knows, orange, red, or what color it'll be when it rises here in LA. Um, on the 16th, there are no major aspects, but there will be four quincunxes. So that could be an interesting day. I mean, the quincunx is kind of an odd aspect. So depending upon how you react to them, curious if anybody has anything significant to report from that date. Seven major aspects on the 18th, including Venus conjunct Saturn. The 20th is Inauguration Day and also Martin Luther King Jr. Day observed. We got two major aspects, three quincunxes, and the moon will oppose Chiron. On the 21st, Sun conjuncts Pluto. On the 23rd, there will be eight exact major aspects, including Mercury opposition Mars. On the 28th, we have five major aspects, including three conjunctions. The moon will conjunct Mercury and then Pluto, and then Mercury will conjunct Pluto, and Venus will enter her shadow also on the 28th. On February 1st, six major aspects, including three conjunctions again. Venus conjunct Neptune, Moon conjunct Neptune, and then Moon conjunct Venus, after which both Moon and Venus go void of course. Venus is going to be void of course for a couple of days, so I would avoid any major purchases or commitments and just
What day?
nurture your
What day?
on February 1st. Venus goes void of course and it enters Aries then on the 3rd. So first, second, third, um, I would, you know, don't try to start a new relationship and don't make any major financial commitments.
Mm-hmm.
On the 7th of February, there will be five exact major and two quincunx aspects. And on the 9th, it's our meetup. We have like five exact major, two quincunxes, plus the Sun Mercury superior conjunction 21 Aquarius. Okay. Uh, the fires. Figure we might want to touch base here. The first fire, the Palisades fire, which was first, was reported at 10:30 a.m. on January
Jim,
7th. Yeah.
Jim,
Yes.
I think we do want to hear about it in the whole astrological, but I think we should do a check-in to see if everybody's okay.
Yeah.
I
How are
guess
people doing?
if they weren't okay, I guess they wouldn't be here, but
Probably
you know.
not. But yeah. Um, okay. So here's the chart. I threw in some extra points that have to do with fire. Um, Vesta over here in the eighth house. The Vestal Virgins, the keeper of the hearth fire of the home. Let me make sure this is no. Um, then let's see here, this little arrow pointing down kind of thing up here in the 11th house in Capricorn. That's Vulcan. Vulcan is a hypothetical planet that orbits between Mercury and the Sun. God of fire, god of the anvil. Let's see. Oh, this is Pallas. Pallas Athena. Spencer likes her, so that's why I put
I
her in there.
do. I do.
Then we spin around over here to the first house in Aries. We have Eris, 24, conjunct the moon. Down here we have Sedna, 0 Gemini, just waiting for Uranus to join it. That could be interesting. Here in Cancer in the fourth house, we have Hades. And then over here, the triangle with the arrow point on top in Leo, that is Volcanus. Volcanus and Hades are Neptunian points or trans-Neptunian points used in primarily Uranian astrology, but they have to do with fire. So I just thought I'd stick them in there. Um, the Sabian symbol for 10:30 a.m. Pacific Palisades, 24 Pisces, 41 Rising. The symbol, the purging of the priesthood. Interesting, I think. I don't know what the other. Then let's see. I think I have actually. Here it is. And this is the definition from Linda Hill's website on the Sabian symbols. Shows seeing through those who hold important positions yet abuse trust, or those who make great claims but don't live up to them. Periodically, there is a need to examine moral and spiritual sincerity. It's easy to allow those who don't really belong to stay because of familiarity or habit. We lose sight of the ideal through our rationalizing intellect, ego, and emotive passions. Things holding you back, revealing the truth, throwing out what doesn't measure up. And I think part of what happened here was complacency. In many ways, LA, well, we all tend to become complacent, Oh my God, yes, that happened. But then well, that was yesterday. And then we move on to whatever, if it's not affecting us personally, it goes on to the next day and the next day and the next day. And some of the areas that have been burning haven't burned in decades. And, you know, people have been told, keep the brush back from as far back from your property as you can and things like that. But when you look at some of the videos of these houses before, particularly some that end up in some of the canyons and the like, more isolated areas, yeah, they're fairly well surrounded by some type of greenery. Um, yeah, LA has a love affair with green grass and cars, it seems, and unfortunately, sometimes both of those can be a problem. Uh, and yeah, it's when something of this magnitude happens, they respond and they respond quickly. You throw in those terrible winds, and you're really asking, you're almost asking for trouble. I'm not sure. I know uh, they've caught a couple of people at least that were fairly or were trying to start fires. I think the one in Westlake West Hills, they had picked up a suspect for starting the fire. Um, I had heard something about the Palisades fire starting in somebody's backyard, but I don't know what. I'm not sure if they figured out exactly how that fire started. I don't know about the Eaton fire. Those are the two major ones that have caused so much damage, death, and destruction. But the conditions were ideal. It was warm, relatively speaking. It was, everything was dry, and you throw in that wind, and boom, it takes off. Um, and unfortunately, some of these streets and areas are difficult to get to under ideal conditions. And then when, people started fleeing from the fires, and the LA traffic jam blocked the streets, the fire crews couldn't get to places they needed to. And so, they brought in bulldozers to move cars out of the way. Um, so the fire trucks and such could get through, and emergency people. So and then of course being Americans, I guess, or being people, no sooner do people start fleeing from their homes than somebody shows up trying to see if there's anything there worth stealing. Um, yeah, we see the best and the worst of people in times like these. Any question, thoughts? Let's see. Let's go back to there's the chart.
Uh,
Anything jumping out at anybody that says, "Oh, fire, we're going to burn like crazy"? No.
Can I add something regarding the Pacific Palisades fire where it started?
Yeah.
Um, there's a video of the Palisades motorhome where people were trying to put out fire on a hill. I don't know if it was arsonists or not, but the head of the mobile home was showing this is where it started. Fire trucks came, and there was only 5 minutes of water. And that's it. And that's why there's an investigation on why so many hydrants were dry. But he said this is where it started, and took a whole video of that. So they're
So
going to be investigating that. That's all.
okay. So apparently it actually started in one of the mobile home parks or the motor
It was on a
park?
hill. It was on a hill at a mobile home, and 3 to 5 people were trying to hose it down. But when the fire truck came, there was no, and Pacific Palisades, that place is at the end of the water pressure. So there was no
Mm,
water pressure in I don't know if it affects it or not, but the Palisades Reservoir was either dry or off because there was a canopy damage. And so they're going to look at that if that causes the pressure issue. But there was a
mm,
woman yelling at Newsom saying, why were all the hydrants dry?
oh, uh, yeah, the perfect storm. Yeah, they picked the wrong day to work on a problem, fix one problem, which only aggravated another problem that they weren't expecting, and they didn't react quickly enough to restore it, apparently. And I know that what was it? They have like I remember hearing that the LA fire has like three major holding tanks, each holding 1 million gallons of water. But they just depleted those very fast because of the vast need for it, because the fire was moving so fast, and it's that dry brush again that takes off. And unfortunately, with that kind of fuel and the winds, the embers can travel pretty far, and they don't take much to start up a new fire someplace else, to expand the fire. And the one thing I guess that was somewhat the only advantage to the high wind was that it was blowing out to sea, which would slow the progress of the fire. If the wind had been coming from offshore on land, blowing the fire towards the fuel, it probably would have gotten even worse. Yeah, Rebecca Rodriguez.
Hi, I don't know. I just joined because I was having issues with the link, but I don't know if this was said prior, but something that was interesting, and I don't know if it can be seen from the chart. Again, I don't know if you guys mentioned it, but there was neighborhoods and communities just kind of coming together and like doing things themselves, including my neighborhood, which was a bit a ways from the fire, but still affected by it greatly. We were all kind of nervous. So,
Where is your neighborhood?
by Dodger Stadium.
Okay. Okay.
So we were all kind of nervous and just, a little on edge because we do have brush
Mhm.
around here. But I did notice that on the news and within our apps, our social apps, everyone was kind of like keeping an eye out and getting together and like helping put out fires and stuff. So it was an
Yeah.
interesting community
But
kind
yeah,
of coming together.
So
I think there's a lot more.
You're by the Hollywood fire then, the Runyon Canyon fire, right?
I was kind of, yeah, it was a
Yeah,
bit, I was
there's
maybe a couple, maybe like a mile or two, but yeah, we were pretty close. So we were nervous.
yeah, there's a lot more of those kind of good stories coming out than there are the bad stories about looters, fortunately.
So
Um,
I volunteer in Pasadena. So a lot of the docents I volunteer for live in Pasadena and Altadena. And I started texting them. 8 people that I'm friends with and I'm docents have lost their homes in Altadena.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, the theory behind the Altadena fire is that they expected, when a fire broke out, they expected it to stay in the brushes up in the hills. They didn't expect it to go south. And it's sort of like no matter how many fire trucks you have, if you can imagine, I don't know where you live, but let's just say you like if you can imagine a whole village going up at once, that's what was happening. They
Yeah.
couldn't even get people out there, and they couldn't fly helicopters because of the winds. If you can imagine, you're going on a freeway and a car passes you at 65 miles an hour. That's how fast the winds were. So almost the whole village is lost. It's the 1920s, and I was also hearing that they're
Mhm.
worried because it was a place for integration. When
Yeah.
Pasadena redlined its city, the blacks and Hispanics went to Altadena, and now they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it has an outpouring. The Rose Bowl and the whole what's the racetrack? The Altadena
You know,
racetrack,
Santa
well,
Anita. Yeah.
Arcadia racetrack has tons and tons of supplies there. So
Yeah.
I've been in touch with the Gamble House had to remove all of its artifacts. And yeah, and we've been in touch with a lot of the people
Yeah.
and docents there.
You know, the winds were out of the north, so yeah, it's gonna go. Fire's gonna
It
go
went
south.
right down from the winds, right down to right through Altadena. I mean,
Would
Hmm.
I was trying to describe this to somebody else, and I said, think of a place where you live, like a village, like Sherman Oaks.
Okay.
If Sherman Oaks all went up in 20 minutes, it's like you can't, what can you do? It's a whole village going up.
Yeah.
would would
Yeah. It's a great tragedy.
would commute
So
sorry
I'm,
sorry would communities coming together be an 11th house thing? Would that be
Hmm.
yeah, I
okay?
would say so.
Okay.
Pluto and Aquarius. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think those are the kind of, there's a lot of positive coming out of it in the sense of people coming together to help each other. And also all that's being done to help people with the fire, the massive collections that are going on at the Rose Bowl and at the Santa Anita and in other areas around the city that it's phenomenal. I mean, LA, the people do step up. There's no question about it. People step up. I know that what is it? Jamie Lee Curtis is donating $1 million to help.
Hmm.
And there's several other celebrities that didn't lose their property, but that have friends that may have lost property, but that are stepping up and making major donations. Um, and we won't talk about our president-elect, what his thoughts were.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move along. We've got a lot of other things to talk about. First up, okay, so here we go. Utilizing the information that we're going to be talking about, the ingresses of the planets into the different signs and some of the aspects of stuff that are coming up. The best way to make sense of them and try to figure out whether or not it might have some impact on you is to look at where it falls in your chart. And a good point to add right now that, yeah, the slideshow, it's available to anybody who wants it. Drop me an email, Jimmy_Eddie@hotmail.com, and I'll have it up at the end. And I will send you a copy of the slideshow as a PDF. This is getting recorded. I did remember to start it, and the video will get posted as soon as I get to it. Okay. Starting off with some eclipses. So there's 4 eclipses this year, which is normal. We have a total lunar eclipse on March 14th at almost 24 Virgo. On the 29th, we should be able to see that one as the moon rises, because of the time of that one. March 29th, we have a partial solar eclipse. It's part of Saros Series 149 or 9 New North. And
Tell me
September
what that
7th,
one's about, Jim.
pardon?
That falls on my north node in the 10th house. So I was wondering what that
Oh,
cross is.
nice. North Node, future, positive. I would say it's a positive thing. I always look at them as positives. Since none of us are kings or queens, princes or princesses, or multi-billionaires, I don't think anything too drastic will happen to us. They're the ones that worried the most about eclipses, it seems, or should. There's another total lunar eclipse on September 7th at 15 Pisces 23, but that occurs during the daytime, so we won't see it. The moon will be, it'll be a full moon, so we will see the full moon rising, but by the time the moon comes up, the eclipse will be over. And then September 21st, right before the autumnal equinox, we have a partial solar eclipse, 29 Virgo 5. That's the new moon, and that's Saros Series 154 or 9 South.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah.
I have a real interest here in Virgo at 23 and again at 29 as it conjuncts my Mercury and sets off a huge T-square. Is it common if these eclipses, one way or another, show so close a time every cycle, or is this an unusual cycle that we have these close numbers for a lunar eclipse and then a partial solar? Is that kind of a common way that these eclipses rotate how
Yes.
they come, or is this
Yes, it's
unusual?
no, it's common. They're never going to be that far. They're not typically that far apart. But what's happening this year is that yesterday the true lunar nodes moved in from Aries Libra to Pisces Virgo. The mean nodes will move at the end of the month. And you'll notice that the first eclipse, the lunar eclipse, is in Virgo. Then we have a solar eclipse, which is a new moon at 9 Aries. That's the last of the Aries Libra eclipses. And then we go into Pisces and Virgo. And then the eclipses next year, the first 2 should be Virgo Pisces as well. But then the nodes will change signs again in the summer. And the second 2, I haven't looked ahead to see whether or not they're going to be Leo Aquarius, or there will be a Virgo Pisces in there or not. So the eclipse families, what the Saros series stand for, they represent families. And they recur every 18 years and a few days. ties in with the movement of the lunar nodes. And from a prenatal or before you were born standpoint, it's the lunar and solar eclipse that happen prior to your birth that are typically considered the prenatal eclipses. And so you want to note what the Saros series was for that solar eclipse, because that's your personal eclipse. And whenever that one recurs, it tends to be a little stronger, more apt to have some influence on you personally, simply because it's yours. And so anybody who's turning 18, 36, 54, 72, 90, or 108 this year, chances are the 9 New North or the 9 South will be their prenatal eclipse. And here's a website. It's a NASA website, actually, that has a lot of good information about eclipses. And you can actually go there and you can find your eclipse, because they have all of them in there. So here's the chart for the lunar eclipse. You can see it's just before 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. our time on March 13th, which is a Thursday. Yeah, so as I sometimes say, well, Friday the 13th comes early this year. It's on Friday, it's on Thursday. But you can see the moon is up here in the 10th house. So we should have, assuming clear skies, a pretty good view of the total eclipse. And it's like, see how close it is to the node? It's only 4 degrees. That's one of the reasons why it's a total, because it lines up with the lunar nodes and the Earth's shadow and so on. So anybody worried about this one? Anybody got anything here like at 23, 24, in the early to mid 20s of Virgo or Pisces?
I do.
Yeah.
I have my midheaven's exactly 23 uh, uh, in Virgo in the third approximately, trying to kiss the fourth. And so I have a lot to think about, as I pointed out. Then the other one comes down. And it sets off a rather large T-square, because the other participants in this T-square, Saturn and Mercury, are within 20 minutes of each other. So that's a very powerful, anytime something hits those two planets, I really have a response. And this one is exactly on my midheaven, which is also a response. So, so we have to take a good look at that for me. And but the interesting thing of it is that we do still have a 10 fourth house kind of situation, because Neptune lurks around at 2 degrees of Libra and is hanging loose, but still very much involved because it's there. So I don't know. I have looked at this very carefully and have I would say some concern for this, because when I have aspects to the Mercury Saturn, I can always tell that it's I'm sure everyone knows it when you can feel something that you know is astrologically reflective of some kind of very close experience. And that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm going, my goodness. And then we go on to the 29th with the solar. And I hope that it's an 11th house, 10th house adventure here. With that, I could really use some 10th house development here. And also kind of just cleaning up the way I communicate to myself and my family, and other people in terms of the Neptune aspect. I have a lot of concern about this, and if any of you have experiences that you have had with the close conjunction or trines or opponent, the orb is really tight. I'd like to hear you kind of talk about it a little bit. The only advantage is that Uranus lurks around within 2 degrees or a degree and a half with the Mercury. So there is also the potential here of some some Uranian thing happening, which could be exciting. I found out by accident that a movie I wrote in 1990, which has long been dead, has had 350,000 people looking at it because the hero of this movie, which I was not particularly proud of, was an international karate champion. And so if you look at who was looking at this thing over the last 10 years, everyone has been talking about where this guy is in fight scenes, where this guy shows off strange maneuvers. And so that is one aspect that I've had that paid off, but I'd like to see more of those occur. I've lost my,
Yeah, you'll get it right back.
okay. So anyway, that's what I have, and I guess now that I think about it, I kind of hope that some other thing surprises me.
Mhm.
All my books are out of print as far as I know, but they could still be seen on Amazon. But I basically would like the Uranus to point, when you get old, you start thinking about adjustments that you want to make to what you're doing. And because you know that when you turn 80, 90 is going to be a big number if you make it. So you look at obituaries and you keep track of where you fit in. Oh my God. And I've lost 3 of my best friends already in their 70s. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to some kind of hard-won insights, I guess. And just be careful, like if any of you also have some hard aspects from either these solar or lunar eclipse cycle here, I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Jim, this is Rita. Can I ask the question? Can you explain? So what I see is that you're talking the moon, which is in Virgo there, right?
Right.
When the eclipse happens. So how does that affect Virgos or Libras? Can you explain the astrology of that?
Well, it depends on what aspect it's making to your natal planets or your progressed or solar arc planets.
I don't know what that means.
Well, I mean, basically, our suns are at, like we have, your sun is what, 11 Virgo, mine's 10. And, um, I think that's far enough that I don't expect any great event in that sense. Though let's see, it's probably, no, it's not making that, it's not doing that. It might be, trying to think so I wouldn't, personally, I'm not overly concerned about this one.
Okay.
And again, I don't worry about transits much myself. I'm weird that way. I guess I'm the unusual astrologer who isn't overly concerned about transits. The only one I'm concerned about is when Mars goes through Libra, which is coming up later.
Mars goes through Libra.
So, but yeah, you'd look to say, well, what's the aspect? If, for example, the moon was sitting on or conjunct your sun, for example, then it would be kind of like a new moon, a new beginning of some sort.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if it happened to be your prenatal eclipse family, then it could be more significant. But then again, you look to see which house is that in. Example, if it's in a 4th house, it would indicate that you might be relocating, moving or something. In the seventh house, it could have something to do with major change in a new relationship if you're looking for one. So it kind of depends on which house it's in and um, what is going on in your life.
So you think the prenatal eclipse is more important than a transit?
Um, it I wouldn't necessarily say it's more important, but what the prenatal eclipse does, because this is just a transit picture at a moment in time,
Mhm.
is that it does give it a little extra kick.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, the transiting moon, for example, if this moon were sitting on one of your natal planets,
Hmm.
it's going to be more of a kick than it would be if it was just a regular monthly transit.
I see. And you're
And so,
talking
like,
meaning the first one, the March, right?
yeah,
Okay. Because I do have on the September one, I have my Saturn in Pisces is at 15 degrees, which is exact opposition to my Sun in Virgo at 15 degrees. And then I have Pluto and Uranus sitting there at 15 degrees in Virgo as well. So that's fun. And then
okay. You know what? We've got those charts.
and
Hang on to that. We'll get to your chart, and you can talk a little bit more about it then.
yeah, and then my daughter has her sun. I have to always look up because it's really crazy. Her sun, moon, Mercury, and and Venus in Virgo. Sun, moon,
Oh,
Mercury. Mhm.
okay then.
So she's gonna have a little activity going on.
Yeah. Which house?
Um. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me.
That's the key,
Scroll.
is always to look to then see which house
Sure.
it's in the chart.
Mine is 6th and 12th. I'm Virgo, 6th house, and Pisces 12th house. Her sun, Mercury, Venus, all 11th and 12th house.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Hmm. Could have something to do with some
Oh,
groups, organizations, friends, and or secrets. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. Okay, so all right, so here's the March 29th eclipse.
Mhm.
Um, and this is taken from Bernadette Brady's book on predictive astrology, also called The Eagle and the Lark, which really is all about eclipses. Um, so this is the new 9 North, which started August 21st, 1664. Doesn't sound that new, but what it means is that there was already a 9 North going on at the time. And the difference between Brady's numbering system and the one that NASA typically uses is that um, they don't overlap. They don't have overlapping numbers, or Brady does. But you can see that the last eclipse in this series is September of 2908. So that's, you know, 300 and, let's see, 1300, 1200, 1200 and some years. So yes, they last a long time. It says, this is a very physically expressive series. Accidents, great physical effort, violence, or any sudden physical events. These can be experienced positively, as for example, the first time snow skiing, or it can be felt negatively in terms of accidents and so on. The approach to take when this series is affecting a chart is to not hide away, but to undertake some physical activity with an ever watchful eye to safety. So here's the chart. Um, there's a real cluster down there in that second house, as you can see. We've got Saturn at 24 Pisces, the node at 27, Venus at 28, Neptune at 29, Mercury at 0 Aries, and the Sun and Moon at 9 Aries, and Chiron over here at 22. So where does this cluster fall in your chart? That's where you want to kind of look to see what, if it's affecting you, what you might experience. Now this one happens to
It's
be,
going to be in the 10th house on my north node,
all right.
trying my Venus.
See, now in my case, it's opposing my natal Neptune in my ninth house,
And
off
my
by 2 degrees, so I'm not gonna worry about that.
so my Pisces rising point is 29 degrees of Pisces.
So you've got Neptune crossing your ascendant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anytime an outer planet crosses the ascendant, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have that vortex angle at 0 Aries of Neptune and Saturn right next to your conjuncting your
Mhm.
ascendant.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I felt so spacey. Like, I feel like I
You,
got lost driving to my cousin's house. I was like, this is so weird.
No, but it doesn't happen until 26.
No, I know.
February. I think February 26th.
yes,
No,
February 20th to 26th is their actual conjunction.
February
However, they do
20th,
get
26th.
close,
Okay.
and they are partile for a while. And I got some of that for later.
Okay. Thank you.
So here's the fall lunar eclipse. Again, this is a total lunar eclipse. You can see here's the sun up here in the 10th house for us at 15 Virgo, conjunct the south node at 18. So here's the moon down here in the 4th, 5th house. So while we'll miss the totality of the eclipse itself, the moon, the full moon will be rising, and it'll be a full moon pretty much as it sets that morning for us. So depending upon whether you're up early enough to see the setting moon or not, you can see. Oh, now here we go, Rita. You see, there's Mercury at 10 Virgo, so Mercury and Sun at 15. So this one gets it's our sun.
It's our sun. Yep.
And that's
this is-
probably it's getting close, but your Mercury's not too far off of that. What you got Mercury at about what, 2, I guess. Virgo. I can kind of remember Rita's chart because she was born the day after I was, and so we're kind of like twins the hard way. So her chart's not a lot different from mine.
No. Well, you're asking for Virgo. What? I don't know.
I don't. Yeah,
Can't think right now.
it could. See, this could generate something from the standpoint of communications, thinking, writing, something of that more of that nature.
Yeah, because it's also in that what's the 10th house up there.
Yeah.
The other one was in the 10th house too that you had on earlier.
Yeah.
So you've got the sun and then you've got the little Mars, right?
Here, that's that's the south node.
No, up above.
Where's Mars? Oh, here's Mars over here. 20 Libra. Oh, Mars is sitting on my Chiron. Yeah, it's okay. Like I say, I watched the Mars transit through Libra. The main one I'm concerned about is my Mars return. So if I survive that, I'm fine.
Your Mars
My
what?
tendency,
Your Mars what?
Mars return.
Oh, Mars return. Okay.
It's like every 2 years, give or take a month, if you one way or the other.
Yeah. Huh. So that's September 7th.
Yes.
So that's right around our birthdays.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we
it's
can
my
look
brother-in-law's
forward to our
birthday and my
birthdays.
ex-wife's birthday, and who else? Yeah.
So when it comes around our birthdays, we just kind of go, okay.
Yep, that happens. Okay, so here's the solar eclipse coming up 2 weeks later. 9 South, 29 Virgo. Now this is excuse me, started July 19th of 1917. So it's a fairly new series. Notice it runs until August of 3161. This arrow series appears to be concerned with the bringing to the surface of long-term worries about loved ones health, or issues to do with paperwork or communication. What were we talking about? This could manifest as a worrying piece of news about a loved one or responsibilities with paperwork coming home to roost. Any news will have a sense of destiny or fatedness about it.
I don't know if I like
Mhm.
September.
It's not a free day
Well,
today,
we
so
just skip September this year. Skip it.
yeah, here we go. Here's what the chart looks like for the new moon solar eclipse on September 21st. It's close. Yeah, so they're 18, 19. Yeah, it's barely an eclipse, so
Hmm,
we won't really see anything here.
hmm.
Won't even notice it. Just another new moon. Hmm. Notice over here in the modes, there's only one planet in a fixed sign, and that being Pluto. So with Pluto now in Aquarius for the next 20-ish years, that means that everybody born in the world for the next 18, 20 years will have at least one planet in a fixed sign, that being Pluto in Aquarius, which means nobody will be missing that mode.
Could that be a good sign? Because Aquarius is like collective. I mean, that maybe more
There,
people would be interested in the collective rather than the individual.
well, they're all good signs.
Well, I know, but I mean,
Yes,
the hippie in me is going. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, where you're supposed to start thinking about wider things instead of individual things.
yeah, and you'll note that at this time, Pluto's in the second house. Rebecca Rodriguez, yes.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, it's interesting that we're going through this whole kind of re-looking at CEOs and things that kind of run our lives within the system. We could talk back about Mangione and all the other stuff that's going on at the same time, including this, and it's just an interesting time to witness. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the reaction too that we've had to the uh, assassination of Mangione, or that Mangione
Yeah.
killed the CEO of United Healthcare. Um, yeah, some people were, basically he's being made into a hero by some.
By a lot.
Hmm?
By a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite a
and
few.
my question would simply be, and you think this is going to change anything?
We don't know. Probably not.
I
No.
feel like we're on the cusp of something, if not already in it. Definitely Pluto and Aquarius has shifted I think I saw a lot of social media posts saying that America is getting really close to class consciousness and stuff like that. So definitely probably
Right.
parking the times.
The only, sorry, I was going to make, in my humble opinion, uh, I think the only thing that the Earth is getting closer to is chaos, because of the climate issue and the political instability that's going on around the world.
Well, maybe it has to go
So,
to chaos before it and dissolve and build up again till it unifies.
Yes.
Maybe.
yeah, well,
Well,
let's take a
Jim and I
long,
have been at this for years, We're
yeah.
like the opposite side of the two poles.
Mm-hmm. Um,
So
there
it's
may
just
be
a
dark times ahead.
brother and sister disagreeing.
Ah, yes. I remember I'm an optimistic pessimist, so
Well, it does
okay.
have a grand air trine.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. You got Mercury 6, Libra, Pluto at 1.5 of Aquarius, and you got Uranus at 1 Gemini. So yeah, here we are in September. We see that. Let's see. Okay, so we got, Uranus is retrograde, but they're still in Gemini. Here down here we have Neptune still in Aries, but retrograde. Here's Saturn retrograde back into Pisces now. Pluto's retrograde. Yeah, they're stuck in Aquarius now. Um,
Hmm.
Chiron retrograde still
Partial eclipse.
chugging through Aries. Chiron spends a lot of time in Aries, so.
And it's opposite Mars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's opposing my Jupiter Venus midpoint. Cute. And there's Mars on my Juno. Okay, right. So here's some Mars hard aspects to the outer planets during 25. So we've already had the second of 3 oppositions to Pluto, which was on the 2nd of this month. April 26th, Mars will make the 3rd opposition to Pluto. So, yeah, it's kind of like, because Mars is going retrograde during this period, that's why we get the 3 hits here. And
Hmm.
that's going to be followed up with a square to to Uranus. Now, this is a first quarter crisis of action square, June 15th. Then in August, you'll see here on the 8th, he will oppose Saturn, and on the 9th, he opposes Neptune. That's because they're getting so close to each other.
Well, that's the one on the 15th is gonna happen around Trump's birthday.
Yes, his birthday's the 14th.
Yeah, so he'll have your
Mm.
Mars square Uranus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then September 4th, on your birthday, Rita, we have
Yeah.
Mars square Jupiter. This
What
is
does
another
that mean?
crisis of action square.
What does that mean? Mars squares.
It's the first quarter square. It's when things are expanding, taking action, getting things done, moving forward. And with Jupiter, then with both planets direct, that's a good time for, you should have a pretty good birthday there. That'd be a good time to really go big.
Okay.
If you have an if something comes up around that time where you have the choice of going big or going home, go big.
Okay.
Okay. And then on the 24th, we have the square to Pluto, but this is 3rd quarter.
What do you mean by hard aspects? It just really hits
Well,
it.
hard aspects are the ones that we learn from. They're ones that can require a little more effort.
Oh, hard to
As
us, not the way they're hitting.
Challenging. They're challenging.
Challenging, yes. Yeah,
Thank
as
you.
opposed to trines, which are considered easy, and sextiles, which most people consider easy as well. But point of order is that even hard aspects have some easy points to them, and the easy ones have some hard points to them. So yeah, there's again, the only thing there's only 2 sides to everything except rainbows in the universe. So
That's the
Hard
first time.
aspects.
Sorry, that's the first time I've heard that about hard aspects and easy aspects being easy and hard as well.
yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, those are the ones we learned from. You know,
Tired of learning. I just want to thrive.
you know, when you're confronted with, it's like
Amen.
you have to push on the door. You have to turn the doorknob and push a little bit to get the door to open. Takes a little more effort, but the effort will be rewarded. With the challenging aspects, if you don't put in the effort, you're not going to get the reward. You're not going to learn the lesson, and you're going to have to repeat it again. It doesn't mean that something bad's going to happen. A bad thing can happen with an easy aspect just as easily or easier than in some ways than a hard aspect. Because the easy aspect just happens. Boom, it's there. You know, it's kind of like an accident.
Okay, we'll talk again in September. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Easy aspects can make you lazy, make you think that that I'm blessed in some way. I have a grand trine. I'm very familiar with these things. And things seem to pop up and you got an apple in the tree, and then a hard aspect comes along. You got to figure out how to pick that apple and make sure it's ripe. So to me, a square is going to make you confront something that has to be confronted, and you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
A trine, something just pops up. and there you go, whoopee. And
Yeah, it could be the apple is hanging right there in front of you and you pick it off and you take a bite and you bit into a worm. So, I mean, yeah,
or you're just too lazy to pick it, thinking it'll always be there,
yeah.
and then
I'll
it gets
wait for
the
somebody to
worm.
do it for me. Yeah. And you never get it. Somebody else comes along and gets it for you. Somebody with a square comes along and gets it for you.
This
But
is
they keep it.
this is amazing. I only have conjunction. I have a stellium and an exact square in my chart. Like that's all I have. So I've always kind of been jealous of people who have trines and grand trines. And hearing this is interesting. It's like, wow, I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's called the curse of the grand trine because those people can have a tendency to be complacent and expect things to happen. And so they wait for things to happen and nothing happens because they're not doing what they need to do. It's kind of like when opportunity knocks, you must answer the door or it will go to the next house. Of course, it could be somebody else. It could be, a witness or somebody. No offense to any witnesses in the crowd intended. Let's see, November, Mars will oppose Uranus. Then in December, it will make a waning square to Saturn, and then a waning square to Neptune. The waning square is the third quarter square. It's the square that happens after the full moon, which is the opposition. It's when we're trying to consolidate and get things ready to get finished or put away.
I'm going to diverse just a second. When is our full moon supposed to come? You've mentioned it. Because
Which
it
full
looks,
moon?
The moon out there looked pretty full the last couple of nights.
Oh, it's full tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Because it was, between the fire smoke and everything, it was gorgeous the other night.
Yeah, it'll be full tomorrow.
Okay.
So I would, watch as it rises tonight, sets tomorrow morning, and then also rises tomorrow night.
Okay.
And I'll have to look and see exactly what time it is, but yeah. Okay, so those are some things coming up with Mars. So Mars is going to be a busy fella this year. Notice where it's happening, because again, if you've got planets or sensitive points that are close to those degrees, or making a square to them, keep in mind, for example, if you had, so look at the June 15th here for Mars square Uranus. So we have Mars at 2855 Leo,
Is there any way we could see
Uranus
the
at
screen?
2855 Taurus. So if you got something around 2829, or even 26 or 27 of, let's say, Aquarius or Scorpio, you're talking T square. And so one of these aspects might actually complete a T square that you have, or fill in something that you've got, make a T square out of it. For example, an opposition, if it's squaring one of your points, creates a T square. So those
Is
are
there
kind of things to keep in mind. Now, the only upside to all of this is there is no conjunction by Mars to any of these planets in the coming year. It's already done all that. He did all that in 24.
is
He
there
conjuncted Pluto, conjuncted Jupiter, conjuncted Saturn and Neptune and Uranus.
is there any way we could see the chart on your screen? I just kind of need a visual to picture this. I'm so sorry.
Which chart would you like to see?
What you were just talking about?
You mean like a chart for April 26th?
Yes, please.
Well, let me see what I can do here.
Thank you. I'm following along with what you say, and then I without a visual, I suddenly get lost.
Okay, can you see the chart, or are you still seeing the slideshow?
We're seeing gray.
I've just been seeing your face.
You're seeing me.
Yeah,
Well, let me do this.
for a little
Okay.
while.
Well, hi, everybody. Nice to see all you smiling folks.
I can almost see it in
Um,
the glasses, but not quite.
Okay, hang on. Now let's go back and I'll share the chart. There we go. There we go.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, now why am I not?
Oh.
Where's my
I
chart?
don't
Here we go.
see it. I'm sorry. I don't see it.
I
I
don't
don't,
see the.
I thought it was gonna load.
There we go. There we go. Got it. Are you seeing the chart now?
No,
No,
just
Now
a
what are you
black
seeing?
screen, just a black screen. The
we're
people up
seeing-
above, but the screen is black.
Okay, let's. I am not screen sharing. If I was screen sharing, they would see what I was sharing.
Now I see
All right,
you.
try again.
no sharing for me.
That's so weird. It does the pop-up like it's gonna share your screen, but it is solid black. Maybe it's just a day of
So
technology.
you're not seeing this. You're not seeing the chart.
No,
No.
No.
Okay, well, then let's just see if we can get back to where we were and move along. My suggestion would be, if you take a screenshot, hang on, let's get back to the,
but we don't have a screen to shoot.
sure you do, you got the black screen. There we go.
No,
Um,
sweetie.
Still black?
Yeah.
Still black?
Yes, bro.
Is Mercury in retrograde?
No, Mercury's not retrograde, it's not even in its shadow.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's figure out what's going on here. It used to be so much easier to share a screen.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
worked at the beginning.
I know, it was working fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Remember the days we used to meet in person at the cafe in Santa Monica?
That was great.
Mhm.
mm,
Seems like so many years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
yeah. Hmm.
It was
Okay.
pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
A beautiful time pre-pandemic. We had that wonderful place. We
What
had
was it called? The Earth Cafe? I don't remember now.
unurban.
Unurban.
Unurban. Mhm.
Right. You're still not seeing this chart, are you? The
No, we
slideshow.
see you better though.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, we just, you know. I can see the flag flying a couple of blocks away from me, and the white looks more like
Let's do
gray
this
with
one.
all the
Hang on, let me
smoke.
try something. Let me try something.
Yeah, I'm over kind of by Playa Vista and LAX, and the sky is so blue when there's an onshore breeze, but in the afternoons when it switches to a offshore breeze,
Mhm, mhm.
it just turns.
Okay.
We actually
Okay.
even get ash on our balcony in the evenings.
Oh,
Ah,
I bet. Yeah, yeah. I happen to be in a pocket. I really lucked out. I've got fires to the east, the west, and the south of me, but not right here. I'm in Sherman Oaks.
Oh my goodness.
Any better? Any
No,
change?
sweetie. No, we just see you bigger.
No, there. Hey, there we go.
Now you see it?
I do.
Yeah, we can
yeah,
see it. Kind of
we
small, but we can see it.
Okay.
It's not a full screen, but we can see it.
Yeah. Now I'm going to try one more thing here. Does that help?
No difference.
We use a magnifying glass.
Okay, hang on. We're getting close then. All right, here we go. Yeah, see, for some reason, it is working weird right now.
Hmm. There's just probably something in the air too.
Hmm.
I didn't have any reception on Wednesday evening. I think you got it. By George, I think you got it.
There, that's
We have
better.
it.
That's it.
Yay!
Yay! All right, no more games, no more playing around with this stuff. Okay, where are we time-wise here? What is it? Monday yet? No. Okay. Not as
Not
bad as I
quite.
thought it was. Okay, so
Not
moving on from the this is a lunar eclipse. What am I doing here? Who knows? All right. So catching up. We've gone through. Here's that one. Here's that partial solar eclipse, fadedness, blah blah blah. There's the eclipse. Here's the Mars hard aspects.
Mm.
Okay. Significant planetary ingresses in 25. This is I say tropical because there is, if you're looking at things from a sidereal or Vedic perspective, they're not changing signs this year. They're not changing signs for a while. So Pluto's done. Pluto's in Aquarius. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, the other four outer planets, and by outer I mean everybody past Mars, are all going to be changing signs. Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, that's temporary. It's kind of like they step in, it's like you put your toe in the swimming pool to see how the water is, and you take your toe back out again to decide whether or not you want to jump in for a swim or whatever. So it's all temporary. They're going in, and then they're going to retrograde back out, and then next year, 26, they actually go in to stay. And here's a note about Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is a big thing that people have been talking a little bit about, at least within the astrological community. It's a one-shot deal, February 26th. I think it's actually February 20th to 26th at 0 Aries 45. I need to. However, all right, from June 9th to August 23rd, they're going to be within a degree of each other. Going to be real close. But they're both slowing down, to go retrograde, or they actually go retrograde during this period. So Saturn will end up spending 67 days at 1 Aries. That's as far as he gets. He gets close to 2 Aries, but doesn't quite get into 2 Aries. Neptune, on the other hand, does get to 2 Aries. They will be within 13 minutes of arc, which is less than a quarter of a degree, from July 12th to July 20th. Now, is that going to be close enough to count as a conjunction, or will reformation prevail? Reformation is where there seems to be, there's an aspect that's manifesting, and you get a sense of something coming, but it doesn't happen. But then when the actual aspect does manifest later, that's when it happens. So things can get delayed. So let's take a look.
I take that as, I call that the backdoor man. And the backdoor man sometimes gets a lot of luck, if you know my drift. So I would take that as a real, aspect in completeness. I wouldn't deny it
Yeah.
showing up with a more immediate action.
Yeah.
That's why I call it the black. Sometimes the black door man gets in the kitchen and cooks a nice little.
Feel for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those scenarios where if you're relying on your trines, you're going to wait for something to happen, and it probably won't. It'll get delayed. Or it's not going to be what you expected. It's not going to be as much as you expected. If, on the other hand, you're dealing with a we call the hard aspects, conjunction, opposition, square, even a semi-square or sesqui-square, then you're willing to put in a little effort, then you may get that early reward. So Neptune enters Aries on March 30th. Saturn will enter Aries on May 24th. Jupiter enters Cancer on June 9th. And then Uranus enters Gemini on July 6th. So what happens then is Neptune will station retrograde, Saturn will station retrograde 13 minutes from Neptune. And because Saturn moves a little faster than Neptune, then he starts to pull away. And for a short period, both of them will be at 1 Aries, which is a partile conjunction. Does that mean the event's going to happen? I don't know.
I think that Uranus entering Gemini with the Saturn there, my own bias is that false news, fake news, propaganda, any kind of way of tricking people in communication skills is going to even increase as we move into the summer months. And Uranus is going to be right there doing a hand jive on what. Have you ever played this little game where you have to try and figure out where which guy's got 3 cards and he misses them up, says, now pick a card. That's what we're going to end up to. And most of those cards are going to say propaganda or even bad news from other people telling you stuff. You know, what kind of negotiation will the president make with all of these people that he talks to, and do they understand him the way we do, and his propensity to lie, to extort, and to how will they take that? And when he withdraws from all of these climate changes, how are the people going to look at that? I really think that Uranus and Gemini is going to be so much different than when it runs as it was in a fixed sign of Earth. This is a sign that's, you know, ruled by Mercury, and happy days are coming, you know?
Yeah, I would mention the last time Uranus was in Taurus was during the Depression and the Dust Bowl Dirty 30s.
Yeah.
Okay, so now if you do a little thinking, you can figure out where it's going next. And I got something to talk about what happened the last time he was there. Saturn returns to Pisces on September 1st. Neptune returns on October 22nd. So you can see he's moving a lot slower. And then Uranus returns to Taurus on November 7th. So if you've got stuff at late Taurus or late Pisces, early Gemini, and probably the first 2/3 of Cancer, you know, or even real early Aries. It might be interesting as Saturn and Neptune cross that Aries point 3 times. So we'll see. November 30th, May 24th.
Maybe Trump will have an enlightenment.
Yeah. we can hope. Okay, so here's Jupiter and Cancer. Jupiter changes signs about every 12 years, so it's been there quite frequently. The previous time was June 2013 to July 2014. Oh, we got one extra 0 over there. And then it was there from July of 2001 to August of 2002, 9/11. That was a big event, certainly not a pleasant one. So Jupiter doesn't always bring rewards.
So what year is
there's from-
2001?
Hmm?
I'm just laughing. With the extra zero, that was an interesting year.
Yes. Mhm.
Mhm.
And then 89 to 90, 77, 78, 65, 66. Vietnam was really expanding.
Mm.
54, 55. It was, you know, Korean War was pretty much at a stalemate at that point. They were having their peace talks, drawing lines in the sand and stuff. And then we go back to 42, 43, World War II.
So these are not in
That's coming
order,
up.
though. These are not,
Hmm?
they got out of
What do you
order
mean?
here.
What do you mean they're out of order?
Look from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, I see, I see. I see.
I'm working from the present back to the past. Okay, so Saturn goes into Aries, first steps in on May 24th, won't leave Aries until April 12th of 2028. So we're getting into the 28 elections. Okay. Previous sojourn was from April 7th of 96 to June 8th of 98. Before that, it was March 3rd of 67 to April 29th of 69. Again, Vietnam,
Hmm.
kind of following Jupiter in that time frame. And you go back to the prime prior to that, April 24th, 1937 to March 20th of 1940. World War II has started in Europe.
Right.
How about Uranus and Gemini? It's going to go in on July 6th. It's going to won't leave until August of 32, which takes us then from the 28 election into the 32 election. Which is interesting because next, Gail Minogue was supposed to talk this month on the numerology of 25.
Yeah, I was gonna ask her, did you ask her to change or she changed?
Yes, well, no, she had to change it because of a conflict that came up that she had.
Because I know her
So she's going to
personally.
be,
Okay,
yeah, so she's going to do February.
okay.
Uh,
I forgot to ask
so,
you at the beginning. Okay.
yeah, so kind of keep in mind these dates. So prior to this sojourn into Gemini, Uranus was there from August 7th of 1941, 4 months prior to Pearl Harbor, to
Hmm.
August 30th of 1948, World War II and the beginning of the Cold War after. And prior time before that was June 1858 to June of 1865, Civil War. And before that, June 1774 to July 1781, Revolutionary War. Does anybody get a theme here?
Hmm. Hmm.
Neptune in Aries. So Neptune's going in on March 30th. Yes, it steps back to Pisces, goes back in again, and doesn't leave Aries until May of 2038. Prior transit, April 13th, 1861 to June 8th, 1874. Civil War. Prior transit of Aries before that was April 30th of 1697 to February 11th of 1712. Early days of the American colonies, conflict in Europe, Queen Anne.
Good old Queen Anne.
Beginning of, yeah, this is right before, was one of the, we got into the King George's, I think. So yeah, so one common denominator we see is that with Neptune and Aries and Uranus and Gemini, we had our Civil War.
Yeah.
Just say it.
And
Not saying we're going to have
beginning of
another one.
Jim
I'm just
Crow.
saying it. It's just a coincidence, people. Not to worry. Okie dokie. So let's see what we got. We're good on time. Yes, we're good on time. Okay. So, what are your thoughts about these guys moving into these other signs?
Hmm.
We had the commonality of Jupiter and Saturn and Vietnam. Now we had even a little more commonality here. I mean, Uranus and Gemini, it's like war, war, war.
with the
World War
one
III? Do I hear World War III? Going once, going twice? A new American
Well,
Civil War,
Do you
perhaps.
think we could be smart enough to outdo that one? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I would like to add one thing that Jim doesn't really follow this the way I do, but there's a thing called the Yugo cycle, Y-U-G-O, which declares that there's going to be a very messy transfer of energy, and they happen to pick 2025 is the beginning of this, when materialism rules, a strange leader rises up, and strange things happen to our civilization. And after we go through this, a new, different civilization will rise in the ashes. I know that's a lot of depressing stuff, but if you want to go on Amazon and look up YUGO, uh, there are several books on it which are interesting. It's a lot of it's very difficult, but it's also been brought up by if you're into Yogananda, Yogananda's guru, Yuriswar, he believed in this, and if you look at his book, he's got it all laid out too, Hindu style. So I'm not advocating that this is necessarily what's going to happen, but I'm advocating that this is a more interesting cycle than the one where we worried about the Mayan calendar and suddenly there's going to be this big shift to the Hopi way. This is more interesting because the first thing now in 2025, Zippo Eppo, we've got all this stuff happening. And it's not going to be any easier because Trump's going to get started, and all of this stuff here got
Spencer?
started.
Spencer, when you said Hugo is on Amazon, what is it, a book?
Yeah, it's a topic, and there are several books on it. It's called, well, the one I'm reading is called Hugo Shift, and there are several other people are writing about it, but Hugo Shift is the one that I've been reading, and the that group of people, the age of the, what do they call it themselves, the mystery of the ages, oh, the turning of the ages. They've had 2 or 3 lectures on this topic. If you ever find it interesting and you watch what they send out, and every once in a while you go listen to something.
What do the initials stand for, Spencer?
I don't know. It's just like, it's like, why do we call it yoga? This is Yugo.
let's see
Jim, do you know why they call it Yugo?
Not a clue, because I keep getting the Yugo car.
That's what I was gonna ask. Is it any reason why they named that little car? What was that in the 80s?
It's from
Yeah.
Yugoslavia.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But go
yeah.
to Amazon and look it up and
Okay.
I
read
was
the
on
comments.
Amazon. I was trying to, okay, under books, you say.
Yep.
And when you talked about the turning, were you talking, isn't that the one where it's like 80-year cycles or something?
No, these are huge cycles.
Okay.
And they consider the fact that human beings have been on the earth for at least 200,000 years. It's very shocking as we push this back and back and back. When I was younger, I thought we gave everything, like, started in maybe 15,000 years ago and didn't really pop up, and they have a date for the Big Bang. It's fascinating, and it will make you think. But then when you look at what Jim has got here about these big planets changing signs, we can look at his history and see the themes like Uranus in Gemini and things like that.
With Uranus and Gemini, are there any other planet alignments with those wars that will be happening in 2025 to 2032 that would also coincide with like World War I, Civil War, Revolutionary, and other planets?
I don't know. I know.
Well,
Okay.
I was going to say, for one thing, we know that you had Saturn and Aries right before World War II. If my memory is serving me correctly here, back up. Okay, yeah. So we got Saturn in Aries from 37 to 40. We had Jupiter in Cancer, 42, 43. You had Uranus in Gemini and Neptune in Aries. No, where was Neptune in 48? Oh God, I don't want to do this. Let me see here.
When was the revolution? When was the Civil War in England? Was that right after Elizabeth? So it'd fall into this period of time?
Which one you talking about?
I don't know.
If
Let's pick.
you're talking about the one in the 1600s
Right.
with
Yeah.
where they did away with the king briefly.
Well, yeah, we had this little Presbyterian guy. What was his name? He was very interesting. He put horses in the stables of cathedrals. What was his name? I'm trying. Anyway, he had he had him strangled for 80 years, and his son lost out, and they brought back George and everything. What?
Yeah, it lasted about what 15, 20 years was all. It didn't last too long. Oh God, why can't it?
They have an interesting history of the British.
Yeah,
Is that King George
Cornwall,
the Third?
Cromwell,
Oh,
Oliver
Yeah,
Cromwell.
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 Okay. And I whipped up a chart for December 7th, 1941. I'd show it to you, but then we'd go through that whole mechanism again. But so if you're not seeing it, my apologies. But we have a Saturn-Uranus conjunction in Taurus.
And
We
this is for
have
what, Jim? You're reading it out. It's what?
this is from December 7th, 1941.
Just right before we enter the war?
Yes. That was the Pearl Harbor.
Oh,
We have
Pearl
a
Harbor, okay.
Okay, Saturn-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. We have trining Neptune at 29 Virgo. We have Pluto at 5 Leo and change, which was Mars just stationed retrograde at 6 Leo. Let's see, the nodes are 18 Pisces Virgo. Isn't that where they are with the September eclipse? Hint, hint. Jupiter and Gemini. Opposing the sun. 5 planets retrograde. Saturn, Uranus, Jupiter, Orb, and Pluto. Chiron's also retrograde, doesn't count. Those are also retrograde. So that's
I'll
kind
never
of
forget that day. I was in a movie theater. I was a kid.
Ah.
The matinee was supposed to start at 12, and then suddenly the usher came down and said we'd all better go home because Pearl Harbor had just been attacked.
Oh, Cornelia. Oh my goodness. You
did
remember
they
that?
give you your
Of
wow.
did you
course,
get your money back?
you can't forget moments like that.
No, but I just
No.
didn't realize you were. How old were you? You had to be young.
I was 10.
Oh, wow. So you're
Mhm.
you're older than you look on the screen, love.
Thank you.
I'm going to interview Cornelia when she has her Neptune return.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean those are those are the events that you don't forget.
No,
Like
of course not. I
9/11,
just didn't
Kennedy's
even realize he was
assassination.
old enough to even be born yet, you know?
Yeah. And what's interesting
Well,
when
I
you
was
think
in
of
New York at the time.
yeah,
Yeah, but
think of
still
the
you have,
children and think of today's generation. What major event do they have to remember at this point?
Kennedy being shot.
no,
Now I'm
that's
talking about
us. No, that's us.
the
We're
kids today.
talking younger.
I'm talking
That's
about
9/11.
Jim and I. Jim and I are in high
kids of the
school when that happened.
2000s.
9/11.
Okay.
9/11,
They were too
I
young to
don't know if
remember
they're old
9/11.
enough yet.
They weren't old
COVID.
enough yet.
No,
If
they
they were
weren't
even
old
born
enough.
yet. They
The
don't have
COVID
they don't really
pandemic.
have that kind of an event,
No,
do
my
they?
grandson
Yeah.
is like 15 or 16. He has no major US event that's really shocked him.
The pandemic wasn't rough on them.
No, they kind of flowed through it. You know, they had their computers, they sat inside.
Yeah.
The
And see,
only thing I remember is when he was learning American history. So I don't know what grade are you when you were in American history. You're what, 7th grade or something? I remember him coming and telling me, he goes, Mima, he's talking about American history. He said, we colonists had to impose the intolerable act because they kept taxing us. He was so upset that we had to impose the intolerable act against the British. And, we talk about that, not that it's going to have the same effect, but we talk about the guy that shot the United Health Office worker. And I thought, well, somebody had to start doing the shot heard around the world for the American Revolution because the British were listening. The health insurance companies are not listening.
Yeah.
Government's not listening. So if he could bring a little bit of attention to it, I don't think it's the right thing to do, but a thought.
Mhm,
Yeah. Luigi.
Luigi, yeah, Luigi.
mhm. Sure, okay. Are you all still seeing this, what happened before Uranus and Neptune outside?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, good. All right, then we can move on to the next one.
Okay.
Here we go. There's a little more to add to the things. In 2025, Pluto will go out of bounds south for the first time since the American Revolution.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
He was previously out of bounds north during World War II in the
Why
late
did we
40s.
turn you on for hell and brimstone stuff? Okay.
He will seemingly drift in and out of bounds from 2025 into 2035. So what's the significance of this? How does the political climate of the 1770s and 80s compare with today's? Spencer,
Pretty
you're old enough to
similar.
remember.
Mhm.
Think
I
you
think it
go.
exactly compares. I mean, when you think about, we had to worry about Mad King George, and now we've got Mad King Donald.
Yeah, that's what Luigi was talking. That's what I was just talking about. We had to pass the colonists had to pass the Intolerable Act because
Right.
England wasn't listening and the government's not listening to the people.
Well, shot the wrong guy.
Yeah, they did.
Sorry, Luigi, you shot the wrong guy. But oh well. A country divided against itself cannot stand. That was in a speech that Abraham Lincoln made June 16th, 1858,
Yeah.
as he was running for uh, the nomination for president from the whatever party it was. He was no, he's running for the Senate, I think it was, and he lost to was it Douglas? Somebody, I think.
It might have been, yeah.
And I think he lost, if I remember right, he lost the election. But then the next year next time around, he was nominated for president and won.
Yeah.
And it cost him his life.
Mm.
One of the stories about Lincoln in the White House that fascinates me is, of course, when he met his ghost.
What? What? Tell me that. What? Lincoln met his
Yeah.
ghost?
Yeah, Lincoln met his ghost. He was in the White House, and I'm not sure if he was. I think it was actually a dream that he had where he was in the White House walking around, and he actually met his spirit self
And what
in
did
his
Spirit
dream.
Self say to him?
Or what? Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it was supposed to be when he was actually walking around the White House at night, or if it was actually in a dream that it happened. But yeah,
Mm.
Well, I
But what
think
did
okay.
it say?
I think United States at that, well, it wasn't United States yet, that
No.
we were totally divided then too.
Yeah.
You had the Tories that said, no, we can't do without the king. They're powerful. They've got an army and a navy. And how are we gonna fight them? And
Yeah,
the colonists were saying we have to.
No,
Mhm.
not by Lincoln. Lincoln, we're already a country. We already have.
yeah, but no, she's talking
Oh,
about
sorry.
1770s and 80s.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cornelia. I'm sorry.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank
But
God for
here's
the
the thing
French
yeah, and
and
one of the things that
Lafayette and Franklin.
one of the things I think that we tend to forget about with the American Revolution, because of the way it's painted, we think that most Americans were patriots and supported it. Not
No,
really.
yeah.
It was kind of like a three-way split. About a third of the people didn't want it, and a third of the people, you know, didn't care, and the other third were the ones that were pushing the rest of us, the rest of the country into the revolution, and you said we're going to happen anyway. I mean, because there's a lot of people that didn't care one way or the other. Keep in mind that you didn't have the internet then, didn't have telephones, telegraph, or anything,
Right.
and the only way of travel was either on foot or on horseback. There weren't, had no interstates, didn't have any good roads. Most streets were dirt. If you're
It
lucky,
took
had
days to get
cobblestones.
any place.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people in America that didn't support the British position and didn't support the Patriots position either. They didn't want any part of it. And approximately a third of Americans would be classified as Tories and supported the British, and
A lot of them moved to
a
Canada,
lot of them ended up leaving the country and going to Canada or back to England.
right?
And it divided people. Franklin was for the revolution, and his son sucked up to the British, and they never really resolved that
You-
conflict.
Right, Spencer. Who's our Ken Burns has a wonderful documentary on that whole Benjamin Franklin and his role, and
Oh, yeah.
he had to arrest his son and put him in a in a fort to keep him quiet because his son was gaining troops to fight against the colonists in New York.
Right.
So it's Ken Burns that has a whole series on that.
Well, that's great. I'll have to look at that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
The other thing you have to realize is when you really look at the motivation of the rebellious colonists was an economic one.
Well, yeah, because it's taxation without representation. They were being taxed by the British and they had no say in it. And the British were overtaxing them, you know. There's a
Well, what do you
this is
think?
just
I was just reading the GOP's plan for 25, and I think a lot of people should be worried because it's going to be another economic blow if they do all the things that they're planning to do.
Yeah.
this is just a funny little anecdote. You see, this is Twining's tea. Can you see that?
Yes,
It's British tea. And
right.
a few years ago, it was saying celebrating 300 years in business. And I went, 300 years British tea. So I go to their website and it says, the oldest tea on the Strand. We were not part of the American Revolution. They were not supposedly the tea that was thrown overboard in the Boston Harbor. But I thought that was so funny that they would put that on their website. We were not part of the American Revolution.
Right. Speaking of the Boston Tea Party,
Yes.
how many of you know about the earlier Tea Party?
Which one?
The one before the Boston Tea Party.
Which is named what?
It was in South Carolina. Some ladies got ticked off about the Boston problems with the tea as well, and they dumped a bunch of tea as well. They stopped buying it.
I might have known about that because I used to study
Right.
American history.
It's a little known fact that I learned from the Daughters of the American Revolution, thanks to my wife.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm jealous. I want to be a daughter.
Yeah. It's interesting because when we think about the history of the American Revolution and the Revolutionary War, most of us are taught pretty much the history of from a New England standpoint
Mm-hmm.
and not from the standpoint of what was going on in the South. I mean, when you consider that most of the political leaders and military leaders and many of the presidents early on, at least, they came either from Boston or Virginia.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but we tend to add, the surrender at Yorktown. We tend to forget about what was happening in the other parts in the southern colonies because they don't really get a whole lot of play in our history books.
Wow.
By the
Why?
way,
I had
Do you
never.
know why that is?
Why?
tell us why, Jim.
The reason being the Civil War and the fact that you have probably more northern people writing. Yeah, Victor writes the history.
True.
He who wins writes the history.
But you didn't,
And so
but you didn't, you asked the question, why were the northern states more interested in the Revolutionary War than the southern colony, the southern
I'm
colony?
not saying that.
Oh,
I'm not
But-
saying they were more interested in. I'm saying that our history is more focused on the northern colonies rather than the southern ones.
Wait, the
Right.
the southern colonies had to deal with New York bankers all the time to get money for their planting of their seeds. They had one, if you are even familiar with America, there's a lot of problems with the return of the planting of things, and they got tired of the taxes they had to pay on loans to plant their cotton, and that became more and more of an issue. That why should the Northerners control so much of their economic adventures? We'll just cut ourselves off from all those New York people. They're bad anyway. And
Excuse me.
And there was bad blood way back then. I mean, how many of you remember hearing about who Francis Marion is?
I used to know.
Francis Marion,
Right.
American Revolutionary War hero.
So, no.
Francis is a female or a male?
Male.
I don't know him,
What
but
was his nickname?
that's what I was gonna say. His nickname was Swamp Fox, but I don't know
Bingo.
what it is.
Swamp Fox.
I had to look it up. I didn't know.
Shame on you.
Hmm.
But
Well, no,
yes,
I was looking up your tea party. It was, I don't know if it's Edenton or Edenton, North Carolina, in
Mhm.
1774. 50 women signed and published a statement declaring their intention to boycott all British goods. And it was one of the first women's public collective political actions. That's fascinating.
What year was that? 17 what?
1774.
74.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, right. So here's a chart when Pluto goes out of bounds south. And up in this table in the corner, here we see Pluto. We come over here and right here, 23, 26, 10, and it's in kind of a pinkish tone. That means it's out of bounds. And the little minus in front means south. There is that one Aquarius 50. We have a grand, I wouldn't call it a grand trine because it uses the ascendant in the north node, and it's water, so, you know.
Going
But you
back
got the grand, but you got
can
an,
I go back to the previous discussion for 2 seconds to Spencer? So Spencer, who was the most influential person in the Revolutionary War?
Lafayette and
No, Benjamin Franklin. He was the most famous American in the world, and he went over because of electricity and the lightning rod. He went over to France, and he convinced them to give money and support the colonists.
But who was the one that enabled Benjamin Franklin to meet all these people in the French monarchy? So that, granted, Benjamin Franklin was the genius, but without Lafayette, who he practically adopted as a son, we wouldn't have found the way to make the French, who hated the British, side with us, give us troops, and Benjamin Franklin was in that, but he wouldn't have been able to do it without Lafayette.
Yeah, but he was the one that supported Lafayette, who then supported us. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
think
we're kind of off topic here, but I get very, yeah, I'm sorry.
I think somebody who had a great impact on the Revolutionary War was Thomas Paine.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, they were, yeah, his writings, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to by past history that I've known and the Ken Burns special on it. He has a whole special on it. But anyway, okay.
I'm
So-
going to throw something out there. Speaking of history and reincarnation. Oh, we weren't talking about that. I have a question for you. Is it possible that Donald Trump is the reincarnation of John Adams?
Of
John
who?
Adams.
John Adams.
Why
John
Adams?
Adams.
Check out John Adams' history and his time as president, what he tried to do.
Oh.
He was big on martial law and things of that nature.
Uh-huh.
And also
Mhm.
about people who were politically opposed to things. They were
Yep. He was shutting down newspapers, reporters, anybody that was against him politically.
Ah,
In fact, the other party, they left Washington and said, "Yeah, we'll come back when you regain your
that's
senses."
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He was a
So
feisty man.
I would be curious to pull up his birth chart and compare it to Trump's.
Oh,
Just
that
to
would be interesting.
We can give that a go. Hang on, let me I don't think I got too many slides left here. Here's a graphic showing Pluto going out of bounds. These red lines represent the boundaries of the sun. And
Oh,
so here we
wow.
see in the 30s, 40s where it's just up above it a little bit. It never
Yeah,
gets real
yeah,
far out
yeah.
of bounds, but it gets
Enough.
up there. And then here's where he's south out of bounds. But notice that there's a long period in between south and north, but not north and south.
Yeah.
So basically, we're looking at about 80 years in between, 90 to 80 years between, 80, 90 years between when it goes out of bounds north and goes out of bounds south. And yet we're looking at a period of 160, 70 years, 150 plus years between when it goes out of bounds south till it goes out of bounds north.
Is there an explanation for that? Why it's almost double?
Uh, long cycle. It has to do with Pluto's orbit and the inclination, Pluto's axis to the sun and all that astrophysics stuff.
When
Hmm.
Pluto went through Libra, it zipped through. It didn't give me enough time. I'm a Libra. But when it got in certain places, it stayed there for seemingly infinity. It was,
Yeah.
following
Uh,
that baby.
It's Pluto's moving towards let's see, I think it's Taurus Cancer where it spends the most time. Somewhere in that area is where it's
Mhm.
farthest out.
Yeah, that's when I was born.
Mhm.
When was that, Cornelia? When it was furthest out?
In the 30s.
It was in
Don't look it, my love. Don't look it.
Oh, thanks.
okay, so here's an ingress table for Jupiter. Um, so stations direct on February 4th, goes from 11 Gemini to Cancer in just over 4 months. Gets from 0 Cancer to 25 Cancer. Stations retrograde, goes back 10 degrees, which is normal for Jupiter. And then charges out in 26, moves out of Cancer into Leo. So right now, Jupiter's retrogrades are all within the one sign that he's in, but he's getting close to making a transition where he may cross over the sign boundaries.
Hmm.
Here's the ingress table for Saturn showing stationings. So he gets to 1 Aries 56, goes retrograde, and then goes back to 25 Pisces 9 before running forward. So yeah, Saturn retrogrades cover 6, 7 degrees typically. And then he races forward about 18 and then back a little and then forward again. Here's Uranus. So stationed direct at 2316 at the end of this month. Hits Gemini July 6th. Only gets to 128. Stations retrograde. Crosses back into Taurus. Stations direct at 27. 28. Squaring Trump's ascendant and close to the Mars, squaring the Mars. And then gets out to 5 Gemini 42 in 26 and then goes back to 141. I ran the dates out just so you could see that once he enters Gemini on April 25th of 26, he's in Gemini to stay.
Exactly.
Neptune.
And it'll be going over the chart's ascendant,
Mm-hmm.
the US chart. It'll be going over the ascendant.
Yeah. So Neptune is going to station retrograde on July 4th this year at 2 Aries 11. 13 minutes of arc ahead of the Saturn at 1:58. Goes back to Aries on 10:22. Stations at 29, Pisces 22. So you can see that between October 22nd and January 26th, when he returns to Aries, he spends a lot of time there. That's over November, December, 3 months. Yeah, at the 29 era of 29 Pisces. Gets all the way to 4 Aries 25 and then backs up to 1 Aries 37.
Jim, have you sent us a copy of this great work you've done? I'm looking
Yeah,
for
I'll send this out to everybody.
Good, because this is a wealth of stuff to study.
Yeah, this
I'd
stuff will,
like to have more
here's-
time to brood over it.
Here's the Saturn Neptune conjunctions. They occur about every 36 years plus a little time. So I went back. Here's 52, 53, where they had a three-peat because of retrogrades in Libra.
Hmm.
And then 89, they did another three-peat in Capricorn. But this time it's going to be a one-hit wonder. February 20th, 2026, 8:54 a.m. our time at 0 Aries 45.
Ah,
Yeah.
At the same time, it'll be sextile Pluto on one side and sextile Uranus on the other side.
Bingo. With Pluto trining Uranus. So
Right.
now this is the time when those easy aspects may not have necessarily a highly favorable outcome, in my opinion. Here's the upside hope for that. This occurs early in the 26 election cycle, because 26 is the midterm elections. By which time, I mean, it seems like already many of the fringe people that supported Trump in his election are having second thoughts because of what he's saying and the people he's trying to set up for his cabinet and stuff. Even
Yeah.
some of his more ardent followers are having issues with some of his picks.
and
Right.
Musk, President Musk.
So, yeah, the good news is that he's from South Africa. So, no, I'm sorry, you can't be president.
But
And
he can
Trump can't
buy a
make you president.
president.
True, he can buy a president.
He can
He
buy
can go buy
president.
some other country if he wants to.
Hmm.
Honest-
Why does
it's-
Trump all of a
Unless
sudden
they
want
change the Constitution.
right?
yeah, which won't
Unless-
happen.
Why is
They
Trump
will never be
suddenly
able to make.
going after these places like Greenland and the Panama Canal?
Because he's
Yeah.
not well. He's not a mental
No,
well.
he's not.
No, he
and
must have some alternative.
yeah, his argument for
Meaning.
Canada becoming the 51st state pales by comparison to Canada's argument for California, Oregon, and Washington seceding from the Union and joining Canada, because they got a lot more to offer us.
No, but Greenland is important because there's a lot of stuff going on in the Arctic Circle.
Yes,
Mhm.
I mean Greenland is important. I won't argue that.
It has
that's for
tons
sure.
of
But
miracles, tons of minerals, tons of
Yeah.
minerals.
fix that slide. Okay. So yeah, and I think this conjunction is significant for two reasons. One, it's at the 0 Aries point, and two, it's a one hit. So whatever it means will be big.
What is, I lost track of what you were focusing on. What is?
This last one
Called the
right here,
Aries
February 20th, 26th.
vortex.
Oh,
There's
Now,
a lot
keep
of
in
stuff
mind-
going on about it. I just watched
Yeah.
the whole thing with Ray Merriman did a whole thing on the Aries vortex with Hub. It was very interesting.
Where did you see that, Cornelius?
On YouTube, the Hub, the organization, the Hub.
Yes.
Yeah. So they had a YouTube where Amanda interviewed him about the Aries vortex.
Thank you.
But he also gave one from his business, the MMA,
Mhm.
because I
So
get
that's
his
the one to
newsletter. I get his newsletter every week.
now. Yeah. So here's my thought on all of kind of summarizing some of most of all of this is that as Saturn gets close to Neptune later this year, um, we have to kind of watch those events, what's going on in the world and in America closely, because somewhere in there is kind of, I think, is an indication of what that conjunction is going to really be about when it actually happens. It's kind of like things are building, and that's going to be the pop. You got that
Yes.
red spot on your
What's going to be the
forehead.
pop? What are we're watching when Saturn gets closer to Neptune later in the later months of this year? We're going to watch what?
Watch what's happening. See what's going on in the world and in America.
But it's
There
going
could
to,
be
it's,
some
Well,
little
Saturn rules
thing.
government and Neptune dissolves things, so who knows
Yeah.
what it's going to be? But it's going to be muddy for a while. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If I
that's like,
understand it correctly, Rita, they're saying to kind of look at it at the end to see, is that to see what happens more in February of 2026 with the Saturn
Yeah.
Neptune?
I think the key time probably will be like July, August, September when Saturn and Neptune are closest
Yeah,
in 25
to
or
each other
26?
I think we should get some
this year.
indications. Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll
in
be
25, and then I think what, and I'm so trying to learn. Thank you all for your patience. So if we watch in July through September of 25 with Saturn getting close to Neptune, it might give us some insight about that February 2026 that you have
yes.
highlighted. Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for listening. I'll make sure I had it right too.
That's
I think it's
my,
important because if you look at that vortex, if it falls in the American chart, it falls in the 11th house of Congress
Hmm.
because Pluto will be going into the 9th house and Uranus will be going over our ascendant.
Mhm.
So there's going to be a lot happening.
Wow.
And you've got sextiles and trines going on between these outer planets. So yeah.
But what's the saying? Something, it has to get worse before it gets better, or you have to have the mix up to see what's wrong before you can kind of fix it or hit an apex or something. What is that, those sayings?
Yeah.
It's like a wedge in the chart, but what I've heard people say who have really been studying this saying that there's going to be a dramatic shift in the way people look at things. A very dramatic shift politically around the globe.
If there
Yeah.
wasn't the Civil War, how would slavery been beaten? How would slavery be rejected? How would the blacks get their power except through a war?
Yeah.
Well, the same with the Revolutionary War. How would we ever get independent of England without the Revolutionary War?
Good
Well,
point.
But sometimes
Canada.
you can get revolutions without
Yeah.
war.
Yeah, yeah. You
I'm
can.
talking
You can
about
make
I'm
diff-
talking about a revolution in consciousness.
yes. I was going to say in thinking. Yep. Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
you know, you have the Industrial Revolution, which is something that was, when you think about it, that's when steam became the king of making England's sweatshops and desire to make all these things that they could then sell. And then other people got these machines and off we went. And that wasn't really a war, but it's changed the whole world as much as the internet does now.
Well, the Americans, that's where you get your big Carnegie Steel and your Rockefellers and all of those get their big money.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you're going to see
Um,
a lot of technological changes, like they're working very hard on this nuclear fusion, which would answer all our problems to climate change,
Mm,
which should be with us in the next 10 years.
nuclear fusion.
I kind of think it started already. You think we can really turn off the problem? so we could do something like that?
Yeah,
We have the ability to do it. The problem is overcoming the resistance to doing it, which is the massive power of the fossil fuel industry.
It's always money. It's always the
and
problem.
isn't that Neptune and Saturn?
Yeah, they're going to dissolve something.
What did I do? Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So Saturn and Neptune make conjunctions about every 36 years, which, if you want to think of it more astrologically, that's like 3 Jupiter returns, 2 eclipse cycles, or 2 lunar nodal cycles. It's a Saturn return plus about 80 degrees plus or minus. So it's not quite the second Saturn first quarter square. If you look back to 52 and 53, we had the Korean War stalemate. Joseph Stalin died. Structures of DNA and polio vaccine were announced. So you had positive and semi-positive things happening. 89, we had the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of communism in the Eastern Bloc.
Hmm.
And Soviets finally pulled out of the Soviet-Afghan war. They finally pulled out of Afghanistan. And it only took us 14 years to forget what they did, which is a Saturn opposition. And, and so go jump right back into it, thinking we could make a difference. So
And I think that lunar eclipse you were talking about happening in September is going to happen on the US North Node.
yeah,
Well,
I think it's close to it. Yeah.
one thing we did in Afghanistan that was really great was we gave women a chance to be out of that Islamic problem of all of the different ways they were repressed, uneducated, kind of kept pregnant
Right.
in the
That
kitchen.
was really I was going to say white of us. It was really nice of us. But of course, then we left, and now they're right back where they were, only worse.
Right.
So they get within 13 minutes of arc, beginning July 16th for 4 days. They're when they both are retrograde, they will be partile, meaning at the same degree, July 31st to August 16th, when they're both at 1 Aries. Remember, Saturn gets to 1 Aries 56, never makes it to 2. Neptune gets onto 2 Aries. So it takes Neptune a little while to get back to 1 Aries. And so from July 31st to August 16th, they'll both be at 1 degree of Aries, but Neptune's at the high end and Saturn's at the low end, moving into 0 Aries.
Uh-huh.
So come August 16th, 17th, Saturn gets to 0 Aries. They're no longer partile. And then the distance between Saturn and Neptune will continue to grow until after they both station direct and Saturn catches up again come 26. So that key period, I would say, begins somewhere around July 16th, runs from to August 16th. That's when things should be at their most intense. But keep in mind that prior to July 16th, they're closing, Saturn is closing the gap by minutes every day.
I
So
can't tell you
pretty much
how much I
July, August are the
appreciate
high months.
I appreciate you so much, Jim, for giving us this stuff. Just make sure you
Yes,
put it
Jim, it's a lot of work.
email. This is like I can't begin to tell you how important and impressed I am with this presentation. It's absolutely super.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Our next meetup is February 9th, assuming nothing else happens. Gail Minogue will be talking about 25 by the numbers. She did a Zoom broadcast yesterday, which I listened to most of. And one of the things that she mentioned in there that was interesting, she was talking about immigration. And, it's like, whatever people say, people still want to come to America. I mean, it's a place that people want to come. This is where people want to come because this is where they will have freedoms and the opportunities to become more than what they have wherever they're from. So people that aren't happy at home, they want to come here. This is their destination. But where do Americans go? Where do we have to go? Is
Well,
in
there's
if
a lot
people,
of places they're talking about now. You can look it up on the internet because there's a lot of
yeah,
people
retirees,
investigating where you can go, like Portugal is one place.
yeah,
Yes.
retirees can go there if you've got, if you got money, but the people that,
No,
you
I'll
know,
tell you
the,
where you can go where it's cheap is Costa Rica. My daughter's gone there.
yeah,
You can get an apartment there, probably the cheapest between $500 and $800.
yeah,
And your
yeah, that's
groceries are about $50.
for retirees. But it's not for the young people that are looking to start a new life. They're where they need to be if they really want to start a new life, start something.
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with people who've moved to Mexico City and they can do their work on the computer and they come in with all this big bucks and drive the price of other real estate up and other
Mhm.
things. And they're now resented by the people in Mexico City. They have had their welcome, refused now. And in Greece, you remember the people came out with squirt guns and started squirting the tourists and said, "Go
Yeah,
home."
yeah. Well, remember the movie The Ugly American?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can just do
Hmm.
it. You can do a Google internet search, and you'll find all kinds of articles and stories about how wonderful American tourists are.
I remember Europe on $5 a day.
Yeah,
That's how
Yes,
old
I went to Europe on $5 a day. It really worked.
I.
Jim,
you
let me
can't
just
go to
say
much.
something here.
Yeah,
Can you hear me, Jim? Yeah, you can hear me,
yeah,
right? I just want I've been to Costa Rica as checking it out as a place to live. It has challenges, and I've
yeah,
actually been to Portugal twice checking it out as a place to live. And I study Portuguese, so I've been diving into this for a while. And I gotta
Yeah.
say, everywhere has problems. And I gotta tell you, part of the problem with going to somewhere like that is that we tourists, whatever, people who have traveled there are becoming really resented. And the only reason I was even the remotely okay, I think, well, the Portuguese people are very nice, but because I study Portuguese, they loved me. That was a
yeah,
very different thing than being just an obnoxious American thinking that the service should be better. I mean,
yeah.
it's a tricky thing to go to another country as an American, let me tell you. So.
Right.
Right, because our typical attitude is that why don't you speak English?
Well,
Right.
which is insanity. And a lot of Germans have that attitude to the Portuguese. It's like, hey, I know English, you should know, English too. So it's weird. But I gotta tell you, I would learn basic Portuguese. Onde é que fica a casa de banho? Where's the bathroom? Those things go a long way in another country. Makes a
Yeah,
big difference.
Yeah,
yeah,
because
if
it
you're really,
shows you're making an effort.
yeah,
Hugely. Yeah.
yes, if you're thinking about relocating to another country, learn the language or pick one that speaks English, where English is the primary language.
I could go to Denmark because my father was born there, and apparently I could go there.
Yeah. Now, some first generation Americans can actually gain citizenship to the country that their parents came from.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can get
Um,
citizenship to England because my grandfather was a citizen. I can go back to my grandfather for
yeah,
British.
so it depends on the country. So
I
yeah,
have
You
one
know,
from
but then,
England too.
but
Yeah.
but us Americans haven't spoken English in years, according to the British, so we don't speak their language either.
well, yeah. Okay, so here's some tentative topics coming up.
Okay,
March got a possible guest speaker,
good.
so it's kind of keeping it open. Um, April, talk about Venus, which is right at the end of her retrograde, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Venus retrograde next month at the beginning, just so people are aware of it, because she'll be retrograde from March 1st to April 12th, I think it is.
Mhm.
And she will actually enter her shadow late towards the end of this month. So, but things like, looking at Venus from a more in-depth perspective, we're going to talk about doing the same thing maybe with Mercury, where what is your Mercury or Venus type? Is it a morning star or an evening star? Is it retrograde or direct? Because those all make differences. One possibility, talking about the 9 phases of the moon. Now, in May, we'll probably do the first Sunday because the second Sunday is always Mother's Day. Some point we want to talk about retrogrades and understanding them better.
Can I ask a question? Wait.
Sure.
I may have done something wrong here. Oh, it was me. I'm putting the numbers in my calendar and I read the wrong month. Sorry.
And then eclipses. I'm thinking maybe August we'll talk about eclipses, go into them and specifically just focus on eclipses and in more depth, go into more about the prenatal eclipse and things of that nature, because we have the second pair of eclipses coming up in September. Well, there's other possible topics, and I'm sure you could think of other things that you would rather we talk about.
Yeah, I'd
So,
like to learn something about profections.
profection, the lady says. Okay, make a note, Spencer. Profection.
Perfections.
Okay.
And
We'll
It's
study up on
another looking,
perfection.
it's another way of looking at your year.
Yeah, it's another timing method of understanding how life cycles. Excuse
Right.
me. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here, if you can see it at the bottom, is my email. That's Jimmy JIMMY _ Eddie EDDY at hotmail.com. If you're coming out of Meetup, you need to email me correct, because I can't send attachments through Meetup. So that's my email. Email me and I'll send you a copy of this slideshow. And I noticed a couple of little typos that need to get fixed. I'll fix those before I do that. You know, with those tables showing the dates things are happening, it gives you the date and the time, and they're all based on LA. So you can adjust the time for your local time zone if you're not in Pacific. But that'll, if you want to look at charts for some of that stuff that I didn't have charts for.
Well,
And if you're specifically interested in any particular charts, let me know, and I'll be happy to do a chart and send it to you as well.
okay, I'm leaving. See all you next time. This has been a great one, Jim. I really want this this particular program that you've made for us. It's just too much. You're great.
It was just really
Thank you.
great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Spencer. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
To a
Au
great
revoir, adieu.
2025. Doesn't matter what the stars say. It's thrive in 2025. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I was going to do
What?
that too.
What?
Well, 2025 is a 9-year. 2 + 0 + 2 + 5 is a 9, which means completion. It's the end of a cycle.
Oh, that's right. That's what Gail was going to talk about.
Yeah, and so 2026, 2 + 0 + 2 + 6 is a 10, which is a 1 + 0, which is a 1 year, which is the beginning
Yeah.
of a new cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Now that I thought of that again, I'll
Okay,
put
so
that
we're
in.
finishing things up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So keep in mind. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Jim, so
Bye.
Thank you all.
much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Anybody have anything, last questions they want to ask about anything?
No, I just want to thank you so much. You're such a dear.
You're so welcome. I
And
appreciate all
so
of you.
devoted to this and to us, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
Jim.
support.
Thank you so much. Huge effort, and
You're so
we
welcome.
all appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Tonight.
guys.
Thanks for your
Have a good
contribution.
week. I hope everybody
Everybody have a
stays
great
safe.
week. Stay safe. Stay alert. If you smell smoke, put on a mask or go back inside.
Where are you located, Jim? What section again?
I'm up on the northwest corner of the San Fernando Valley near the Canoga Park Chatsworth line, between DeSoto and Topanga
Okay.
Canyon,
Okay,
up
so
by
you're up
Nordock.
there. Okay,
So we're getting no smoke here, no smell of smoke even.
okay.
So occasionally we have, we do get a glimpse of some of the glow from the fires, but yeah, everything is staying off on the other side of the horizon
Good,
so
good.
far. All right.
Okay,
Well, thank you very
guys.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Mar.